All right, welcome to the DotPro with BreakyCPK. I am BreakyCPK, of course, and we got another really good show ahead of you. It's always good shows. Let's be honest here, but now to start things off here real quickly is, I was obviously trying to think about what I wanted to talk about on the show this week, earlier on in the week, and being like, thinking about ideas throughout this next month here in general, getting ready for TI7, what the game plan is going to be. Going to maybe preview some teams each week and kind of look how things are going here coming up. But then we had a pretty big announcement come up that I plan to have discussions on later on in the show with Zrock, as we'll have some good back and forth there, I'm sure, and get our takes in terms of Valve recently announcing their new competitive structure for the new TI season, basically going into next season. So we'll get more into that, but that big announcement came out. So we're going to have some fun discussion there on that. There's other news that happened, including some team disbands. Faceless actually announcing their disbandment. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And then there's been some reactions from some of the players in terms of Valve making a point that they're only allowing 6 players or 6, I guess you could say players or team members. They're not allowed, but they're flying out only 6 team members from each of the teams to TI7, where in the past they've done more than that. It's caused some outcry from players like Eternal Envy, actually, who made a whole blog post on it. Again, we'll also take a look at that as well. I got some great guests lined up. As I mentioned, Zrock's going to be joining me later on. We're going to be discussing some of these topics. But I also have a couple of players that are going to be at TI7, including one you may not know too much about. We're going to be joined by 3-3 of Planet Dog. That's right, one of the surprise teams to qualify for TI7 there. So 3-3 is going to join us. And then we're also going to be joined by 1437 of TNC, the captain, of course, the newer player of the team. He joined them very recently, and he's already had such high impact for TNC and helping lead them out of the top team out of Southeast Asia right there into TI7. So looking forward to all of that. But before we get into all of that, as always, let's kick it off with the good, the bad, and the ugly. All right, so as I mentioned, as far as the good is concerned, this announcement coming out from Valve. Now, I'm not going to lie, it's not 100%, no questions asked, absolutely good, but it's a very positive step in the right direction. I've had several guests on recently, including Bill of Beat Esports. I had LD on more recently. There's been a lot of this discussion happening, especially throughout this year, with third-party tournaments and their involvement and their influence on the scene, and how much power do they really have? Because with the structure that's been in place these last couple of years, especially with this whole major system from Valve, the majors are the big deal. I mean, I got the chance to interview several players, Fly included of OG. I always kind of go back to him because, obviously a lot of experience and a great player there and very well spoken. He made the point, and it's understandable that as a player, as a captain of his team, they're not really focused on third-party tournaments. Why should they be? Yes, there's some of these tournaments do have some decent prize pool, but they'll go in some cases because they get the invite and it's some nice money, a nice trip for them, and a nice way to keep warm, you could say. But the majors are all that matters, and then, of course, TI7, because you do well at the majors, you get to go to TI in the end. That's what ultimately matters. In fact, the top 4 teams of these last couple of years of the most previous major have qualified for that TI, both TI6 and TI7. So because of all of this, third-party tournaments have kind of felt more and more in the dark in terms of what their future holds. Valve tried to help create a light, you could say, for these third-party tournaments by announcing their structure for next season. Now, I'm going to discuss this later on with Zrock, so I don't want to go too much into my thoughts on it, but I want to give you a good idea of what it is before we advance on here. So, simply put, I'll try to keep it simple at least. So the breakdown here with this announcement, Valve made the point, next year's cycle, so next year's season, after TI7 happens, it'll officially start the kickoff for the TI8 season. With that in mind, this new structure will take place, and this new structure includes majors and minors will be a thing. However, they will not be Valve official events. They will be third-party tournaments. Now, what this means, majors actually, to be classified as a major, a third-party tournament needs to put up a $500,000 prize pool, which, by the way, will then be matched by Valve. with $500,000. So you could do more. You could do a bigger prize pool, and I'll get to that in a second because organizers may want to do that because of more point influence that goes towards their tournament. But at least Valve will match $500,000, meaning a major will at least be $1 million prize pool that we have coming up. On top of that, you need to have a qualifier for each of the 6 quote-unquote major regions. North America, South America, Southeast Asia, China, Europe, and CIS. Those are the 6 major regions we've seen throughout this last year. Valve's making a point, if you want to be considered a major, you have to have a qualified team from each of those regions. On top of that, you then need to have a LAN finals. It can't be an online tournament, even with a massive prize pool. Not that that would happen. That would be pretty ridiculous. But it has to have a LAN final. So, they made the point to that be a part of it, of course. Has to have the LAN final portion. Those are kind of the 3 rules. The minimum prize pool, the 6 qualifiers for the 6 regions, and then a LAN portion finals. Now, for the minors, the only difference is it only needs to be a minimum of $150,000 prize pool, with, once again, Valve matching that price. So minors are at least going to be $300,000 prize pool, while majors will be $1 million prize pool. Now, so you say to yourself, well, why would a third-party tournament care to host a bigger prize pool tournament? Well, this is where the point system comes into play. So Valve also made this part of the structure very, very interesting, where it's going to be a point system. So this is actually going to be a very visible system. There's no longer going to be this idea of where's the transparency when it comes to teams that are invited, right? Like, this is discussions we've had several times on this podcast now, whether with guests or just myself, even with you guys. The transparency of Valve has frankly been awful when it comes to the past and the structure of this, how this organization works when it comes to inviting teams and determining said invites. It's always just felt like it's kind of just been very opinion based, which I mean is can be fine. Like, I get it, but without having that visibility, it seems like that wasn't going to be able to sustain moving forward. Eventually, we're already kind of getting to that point where the competition is just getting so good across the board. You have to start getting a better structure than just simply, well, we feel like they deserve it by the eye test. I think they got the invite teams right ultimately. Again, we've had that discussion this year, and so I'm not suggesting that that's not the case, but as years are to come, that could eventually happen, and I'm sure it has happened in the past. So this is their way of making it a lot more structured and making a point that we're not inviting based on our opinions anymore. It will be a point structure. The bigger the prize pool a tournament has, the more points it will be weighted towards then giving to the teams, depending on how they finish. So that's where the influence comes into play. You want to have a bigger prize pool. If you're a tournament, and the other part of the point system that's going to be structured is, or weighted, you could say, the closer it is to TI7, or TI8, I guess in this case, next year, the closer timeline-wise the event is, the more weight it will get as well. Meaning that earlier on in the year, again, a lot of roster changes happen, whatever, and we'll get to that in a second, but those tournaments aren't necessarily as influential as they should be towards the later ones that are just around the corner for TI. And I actually like that. I think that does make sense. Just a quick note on that. Again, I talked about that even throughout this last tournament, how these later tournaments should have that more influence depending on your results and whether or not you get that invite spot. So from just patches to all the roster changes that take place, it just makes more sense. So those are going to be the couple of weighted scales that come into play when it comes to this point system. And then one more thing on the roster side, there will still be a roster lock. However, Valve has now made a point that, again, the players individually are actually going to retain points themselves from the team. But say if a player is to leave a team, so they'll be worth that many points as a player, and then they join another team, that new team will get those points. However, only the top 3 players from the team will be accumulated with points. Meaning, if roster changes do happen after some bigger events earlier on in the season, you can't necessarily, get a couple of players from each team together and form like the super team or just to try to be like the number 1 invite team or whatever. It's going to limit it to the 3 maximum players. So this also means if players were to leave your team, in a case like, say, a team wins a dream hack that happens in November or whatever, the winter dream hack, and they get, that's worth a certain amount of points. if they all of a sudden lose 2 players a couple weeks later, they're still worth that same amount of points as they were before, because it only takes the top 3 players into consideration. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, I'm trying my best to explain it as clear as possible here. That's it. That's what we've been told. Obviously, there's still plenty to figure out right here, but that is the ultimate idea of the structure, and that's what we can expect here moving forward when it comes to TI8 season just around the corner. Reaction's been very positive. I was hyped to see this. I think this is a step in the right direction. Still, there are answers or questions that need to be answered. And again, I'm going to be talking with Zrock later on to have those questions, and we can have our own debate about it. As far as the bad is concerned, I mean, this isn't like over the top bad, but it's unfortunate still. Team Faceless actually officially announcing that they are no longer a team. They officially disbanded as of a couple of days ago. After their run, Ice, of course, the owner of the team and the one that formed it in the first place, he put up his own money and everything. One of these player-owned organizations just simply decided as a team, it sounds like, that they were going to part ways and go their separate directions. I know they've always kind of been a fan favorite, and personally in my heart, I've been a fan of the team mainly because of Black. Black has been one of these players that I've known from long time ago in the earlier on Holland days, and I got to hang out with him several times way back when. 5-6 years ago at several locations from DreamHack to Singapore. And the dude's just a great guy. He's a great person. And I know a lot of people got to see that, especially with the documentary that he had come out this last TI here and what he's been through. So Black as a player is somebody that I will always follow no matter where he goes. And so that's why personally I was a fan of Faceless. But I can't say I'm surprised by this. I can't say I'm surprised. This is a team that, with the players that they have and the history that they have on these players, Ice and Black especially, and then obviously great talent around them, not qualifying for TI7 was a disappointment. That was one of the more disappointing things when it came to the results of the regional qualifiers. Southeast Asia, it was brutal. It was a very tough region, and we said that going in, and we got that going out. Not making the playoffs, so on top of that, clearly things just were not clicking for Faceless, and they decided to call it quits. So stepping down as a team, we'll see where the players end up, obviously, when it comes next season. I know Black even quoted out or tweeted out about the new structure for TI and how excited he is for it. So absolutely, he's going to be joining some team and, making them better as a result. So we'll keep an eye on that, but that is the bad, though. Faceless, unfortunately, disbands. Leads us into the ugly. So it goes back to Valve, and this actually has to do with TI7 here coming up. Valve announced to the players and the teams recently that they're only going to pay to fly and give hotels and everything, give best food and everything to only up to 6 team members. So obviously you have the 5 players, and then whatever you want to say, a coach, a manager, whatever. They're only going to be paying for 6 people. In the past years, apparently they've done up to 8 people. So you've been able to have 2 more on top. So you can have that coach and then a manager and then a statistician or a physical therapist or whatever, just a really good buddy that, gives you motivation. Valve has been willing to do up to 8 people. They've cut it down to 6 people. And this understandably has caused reaction from some players, very vocal, Eternal Envy included. He actually wrote a blog post about it. Was basically making some points here that it's kind of ridiculous that they're doing this. In the past they've done a team needs to have a team is more than just the 5 players and even a coach, right? And I get that. I actually 100% agree there. I mean, a manager is important as far as that structure goes. Having that good buddy is important. I mean, I get these things, but personally, I do lean a little more towards Valve on this. Where I think the blame is for Valve is that they did too many before, right? They should not have been sending 8 people from each team before. If they just set this precedent from the beginning that it was only going to be 6 people, or hell, even 5 people, then I think obviously we wouldn't be having this issue. This is a reaction to going from more to less. I think it's a good, and I understand why Valve is doing it. They're cutting costs, and I think it's actually for the better of the scene moving forward. because this is good. I see this as Valve making a point. They really want to make sure they get a very good structure here moving forward, and thus this announcement coming out with the competitive scene recently, as we talked about earlier, that they're really want to cut these costs in some of these places where maybe they were overspending. They obviously, when it comes to TI, we're talking about one of the, if not the most epic events that's ever been put on for esports in general. They've gone all out. Valve has done amazing with making the international the Super Bowl of esports in a lot of ways. And yes, you could argue they need to keep doing that if they want to keep it on top. But my counter to that is they need to have a sustainable plan, right? Eventually, we're going to hit that prize pool mark where it's not more than the previous year. That's going to happen. We thought it was going to happen this year. It looks like we are going to surpass last year. So it looks like once again, we are going to keep rising. But inevitably, that is going to happen, guys. And then we have to be ready for that. And I think this is Valve almost kind of getting ready for that. And again, trying to make sure that they could still have a structure in place moving forward that will still work just fine and be able to sustain for the ultimate future of many years to come. Not just, these next couple of years. They're trying to plan for the bigger future. And so cutting costs like this, again, I understand why the teams and players would be frustrated by it and frankly annoyed by it, but I do think Valve has the right intentions here, and it ultimately is going to be for the better. Another point to this is, at minimum, the teams that get to go to TI, they're making, last year, I think the last place teams got $100,000 portion of the prize pool. We're talking maybe $3,000. $3,000 to $5,000, depending on where the player, this other member is, I should say, that you want to really get out to the event, whether it's the manager or whatever. That's not the most back-breaking money we're talking about right here when you really put it in the big picture of things. It's not ideal, I get that. But it's also, it's possible, is my point. On top of all of that, now, I was doing a little bit of research. I couldn't really find much information, to be fair, but I do know that from talks that I've had with people, at least, that the Olympics, I believe, do not actually pay for their players or the athletes to get to the Olympics. That's actually on the countries and the athletes themselves to get to these to get to the Olympics, right? So. Now, no, Dota 2 is not, I don't mean to be comparing it to the Olympics by any means, but it's just more of a traditional sport comparison that I do like to make in times like this. I get it's not a traditional sport, guys, and I know that's going to, it's even going to piss some people off, the fact that I'm even bringing up traditional sports on a topic like this. But at least in the Olympics, and again, I wouldn't be surprised if the NFL, the NBA, now I don't have fact to back this up, but I wouldn't be surprised if the organizations, they don't actually pay for the travel of the teams even. That's on the ownerships of the teams to take care of that. Yes, now the structure of Dota 2, again, is pretty different, and it's a lot younger. It's a lot less in a lot of ways, so I do want to hold off a little bit on making that my extreme point by any means, but it's something to think about as well when we're talking about this subject. Frankly, I think Valve could have just said, no, we're only sending 5 players out, and that's it. But I do think they wanted to, be careful with overdoing it. This is them kind of respecting the idea that, yes, at least a coach is also important in their mind. And I do think it is. So hopefully they keep it at this. Again, I think this is a case of 8 was too much in the first place. 6, I think, is a good number. If they then lessen it to even 5 next year, then yeah, okay, maybe we should have a problem. I feel like this is a good number. I get why there's reaction, but I think it's a good number. But that's the ugly, obviously, with the debates back and forth that is going on. So there you go, guys. We're going to be going on a break, but we have a big interview coming up. I'm going to be joined by 1437, the captain of TNC, will be sitting down to talk with us. Stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back. All right, everybody. So now I'm actually really, really excited to be joined by this man here. But goes by the name of 1437 online. the captain of TNC. How's it going, man?
It's going all right.
Happy to have you on. I know it's we made it work. I'm glad. It sounds like you're at a LAN center right now, correct?
Yeah, we're at this LAN center called High Grounds. It's like half restaurant, half TNC, one of TNC's LAN shops. Yeah.
Okay. So you were mentioning to this to me before that I guess your team house is going through renovations or something, or?
Yeah, we actually moved into like a bigger home, but the internet hasn't been quite fixed there yet. So we're just spending a couple of days at the LAN center here, just playing until we get internet at our new home.
Nice. Obviously preparing for the big event going to be coming up here. We'll get into that though very shortly. But before I got into all of the TNC and everything, I wanted you to take me back real quickly to NP and what happened with that situation where, unfortunately got cut for the team right there. How did you feel when you were let go from Team NP in the first place?
Well, in a way, it was kind of a surprise. Well, I knew that before they cut both SVG and I, people were in talks about having some changes. But for me, I don't really believe in changes. I believe more that the team can work together. You just have to find the right things, to figure out for your team. Mm-hmm. But when they decided to cut both SVG and I, it was very spontaneous. We didn't even have a chance to talk about it or anything like that. It was just okay, you two are out of the team. So it was kind of really a big shock. And it was very hard to just digest all of that at once.
Yeah. I noticed that after that happened, of course, you actually got to a point where you started doing some draft videos where you were analyzing drafts, and then even further, you obviously went to Kiev and you were an analyst there, you were a caster there. Mm-hmm. Was there part of you that maybe thought well, I might just be a caster? Was that something you wanted to do, or did you always still want to be a player?
Yeah, there was. For me, at that time especially, I really didn't mind what I was going to do. For me, it's mostly about my love for the game and what I can do with that. So whether I was playing or casting or an analyst doing YouTube content, it was all I was quite content at that time.
So how did the TNC situation come up? Did they reach out to you at that point?
Yeah, actually, it's a very interesting story because before TNC asked me, I got quite a few offers from some North American teams and stuff, and they were very strong offers as well. But for whatever reason, I really didn't feel like I wanted to play in any of those teams that asked me to. And just the last day before I came to terms that I probably won't play at this international, that night, Cuckoo just messaged me on Twitter. And he's would you be interested to come play for TNC as the captain? And inside, I actually really don't know why exactly I accepted it. Maybe it's because I've played in every single region before. I've spent time in China, Europe, North America, and Southeast Asia is pretty much the only region where I didn't play in yet. And I would have really liked to experience that. So we just talked a bit and negotiated some terms, and I just accepted that.
Yeah, I think it caught. So it sounds like it even caught you off guard, really, and it caught a lot of people off guard in the community that you went to join a team such as TNC all the way out there. But you joined the team, and then obviously you had an event shortly after that. I mean, I've heard some stories about you went to Starletter with this team. You basically only played with him a couple of times before you competed in Starletter, right?
Actually, we it's funny. Maybe a couple of days before I flew into Starletter, we just got on Discord just to talk a bit, and we played some random Steam game together because the manager thought it could be a good idea, and it was fun. We were just laughing and just it was like that. For me, it was like really hard to understand what they were saying or like who was saying what, right?
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, it's fine. We have time to understand each other, and the goal is still to qualify for the international, so it's okay. And then I fly out to this event a couple of days later, and we only scrimmed 2 games against Vega while we were there. Yeah, and like it was a new patch as well, so I really shared my thoughts about the patch, and the guys sort of just was like, okay, let's do whatever you want to do. And that's how it just sort of started when that tournament. We just played like 2 games, and everything else was just the tournament.
Yeah, you went on all the way to obviously get to the grand finals before, dropping a liquid, but you even took them to a 5-game series. So a hell of a performance. Were you pressured? Did you feel pressure, especially not only joining this new team, but being a captain of a new team like this? It seems like there's a lot of weight on your shoulders. Was there any pressure off the bat, or did you just kind of fit in?
Well, to start off, like, you don't really have any expectations because we just sort of came together, and it was like our first tournament, right? So we didn't really know what to expect. Like, they didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what to expect from them. So we just sort of played the game as we know how. But pressure-wise, yes, there is definitely a lot of pressure especially when I first joined, because you like they're trusting you to do well, and then the fans here are like absolutely amazing, and they're constantly saying like, you can do this, we believe in you, and every day you just get all these heartwarming messages, so you really don't want to like disappoint them. So yeah, there definitely is a lot of pressure, but I think I can handle that quite well by now, especially since I've been experienced in this kind of stuff for many years now.
Mm-hmm. So you're in the Philippines, right?
Yeah.
So have you kind of, got comfortable not only playing with this team, but living there at this point? Because you've obviously been out there now for a little bit. Have you kind of got settled in?
Yeah, I think so. I can say I'm decent at adapting to whatever situation is around me. So when I came here, it was actually much easier since how I was raised, or like my culture. My parents are both Sri Lankan, so like it's this island below India, right? And how they like raise their children, how they teach things is very similar to the Filipino culture here. So for me, it was like actually extremely easy to mesh in with them and understand like why they do the things they do or how they think.
Very cool, very cool. So now take me to the regional qualifiers. Obviously, this happened recently. You, of course, ended up qualifying in the end. You got that first place seed. Were you happy with your performance at the regional qualifiers? Of course, getting first place was nice, but were you happy with their actual play as a team?
I think in the start it might have been a little difficult. Actually, it's weird. Southeast Asian teams, they're like really crazy, so you don't know what to expect from them, and every game was like some kind of a roller coaster. There were always chances that we could lose the game, but that's just like the nature and the volatility of this region. So performance-wise, like I can say that I was happy because we did practice well and we executed our strategies. So yeah.
Well, so do you notice a difference, because you have played in several different regions, as you're mentioning? Right. What stands out to you the most in Southeast Asia when it comes to the play of the teams there? Is it just chaotic or what?
I think the players are very aggressive, and they are quite good at applying pressure. Whereas like if you would compare North America, they're very good at understanding farming patterns and like really getting the most out of the map. So like every region has their own strengths in that way. But yeah, like Southeast Asia is just a really chaotic region.
Yeah. what was your guys' reaction like? I think there might have even been a video out there that I've seen that I think about it, but what was the reaction like when you actually had qualified for TI7? What did it mean to you?
For me, like I haven't played in TI since TI4. Since the last two TIs, I was just coaching, Team Secret. So it was really like, I just a month and a half ago, I had already like given up on the idea of playing at TI this year, because I was kicked and I already turned down on my other offers, and I was like, okay, I'll probably just end up being an analyst or doing some other stuff instead. So like coming from that all the way to like qualifying as a first seed in Southeast Asia was really it was really like I felt a lot of pressure just come off right away when that happened, especially since we didn't have to play in the how do you call it, the playoffs afterwards.
Oh yeah,
because we just won through the group stage, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it was really. It was a really nice feeling, and my teammates too. They were so happy to just be able to play at TI again.
Mm-hmm. It was and speaking of that, obviously Southeast Asia. I said going in, I thought it was going to be one of the most fun qualifiers to watch. I actually got the chance to even cast it, and it proved to be that. You guys having the 3 qualified teams going. Obviously, you got out from the group stages, but as you mentioned, the playoffs, a dangerous area to be. What do you think about the other 2 teams that ended up qualifying in Fnatic and then Execration?
Yeah, I really thought that Faceless and Clutch Gamers would have had a very good chance to qualify. Like that's what everyone thought, right? Like those 2 would be with TNC qualifying or something. But Fnatic, like they really stepped up their game. They've been sort of like hiding in their way because we haven't really seen them play in too many tournaments. So they really showed up. They had some like 2 or 3 strong strategies that allowed them to just go through. And for Execration, they're the team that came through the open qualifiers. And normally teams that come through open qualifiers are like really strong. For example, in the EU qualifiers, Planet Dog as well.
Yep.
They were the other team to qualify from there. You really can't underestimate them. And I think the teams that played against them really did underestimate them.
Yeah. Was it very surprising to you that Faceless did not even qualify for the playoffs, let alone TI?
Yeah, it really was, actually. We had very high expectations for that team. But I think like how they put like Jabs on support role and how they put Black on mid and XY on carry, it was a very good idea to play on like an international level against other international teams. But that kind of strategy doesn't really work when you're playing against the Southeast Asian teams. It's a very like difficult concept to explain, but I think in my opinion, if they had like Black playing carry and Jabs on mid during just for the C qualifiers, they would have done much better.
Interesting. And then of course the announcement of the disbandment. What about that? I mean, any take on Faceless disbanding?
I mean, I think that's just a very normal reaction, especially in Dota. If you aren't performing well and you don't make it to TI, you sort of just throw in the towel. Yeah. And try again next year with another group. I think honestly, I personally don't like that kind of mentality. I would rather people try to build on and like have something stable. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So obviously now you're going to be going to TI7. How do you feel about the current patch that we're in? Do you think that you're comfortable as a drafter, especially going into TI7 with this patch that we're at?
I think no matter what the patches, you have to get comfortable. Even if you don't, like right now, I haven't really played on this like new patch that just recently came out, 7.06E, right? So I'm just watching like MDL, trying to understand what the other teams are thinking. But hopefully, by the time TI comes around, we'll be very comfortable.
I was going to ask. I mean, so it sounds like you've been watching MDL. There's been some interesting stuff that we've been seeing. Chaos Knights obviously taken off quite a bit. I mean, right. Is there something that really has stood out to you from watching MDL yet?
Some things about like some nerfs, how much some of the teams are respecting it and like trying to avoid picking those heroes. I think until the tournament finishes, you really can't say what's like really strong or what's really standing out, because I just try to not to be biased and just look at everything equally.
Of course. And it'd be wrong of me not to ask this, but how do you think you're gonna perform at TI7? What would be a disappointing, or what would be a satisfying performance? I'll put it that way. What would be satisfying performance at TI7?
A satisfying performance at TI7 would be like all of us playing at the best shape and just trying our best. I think as long as we're in good shape and we do the best we can, I really don't mind anything else. Because to me, like, TI is never just the end. Sure, for this year it's the biggest tournament, right? But I really can't like say, oh yeah, this is good enough or this is good enough. We want to win. And I think this team is capable of accomplishing that. It's just a matter of how we get there.
Yeah. And then also one more thing. There's a chance, it's not guaranteed, but do you want to face off against and beat Team NP, or do you not really care about that?
I mean, a part of me obviously cares. I really want to be able to play against them. I think it would be extremely fun because they're like a very different team in compared to like all the other international teams. But as a competitor, especially going into this TI, I want to beat everyone. So, of course, I want to beat Team MP.
Well, you'll definitely have the chance. Again, the format there, group stage, is a lot of Dota to be played. Are you excited for the format?
Wait, TI format is already out? I actually... I actually haven't. No, I haven't checked yet. When did this come out?
It's been out for a little bit, I want to say, at least a couple weeks, if not longer. But
wait, the group stage format?
No, the format. We don't actually know who's in the groups, but it's going to be 2 groups of 9 teams in each group, and it's best of 3 play all the way through.
Oh, yeah, I probably just overlooked that. I think I was just more focused on qualifying for the international. But yeah, that sounds good. I mean, 2 groups of 9, but that's a lot of games, but it's okay. Hopefully, like, did they also say what the playoffs would look like?
So it's the bottom team from each group is knocked out. And then the 16 teams move on. It's the top 8 or the top 4 in each group move on to the winners bracket. The bottom 4 move on to the losers bracket. So
I see. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. I think I don't know. Maybe because they're all best of 3s, there should have been a bigger reward system for the top, like let's say 1 or 2 teams, than just like top 4 moving on to the winner brackets. But I think it's fine.
Yeah. All right, well, really do appreciate it, 1437, for joining me. Obviously, we're going to be wishing you the best of luck at TI. And any shout-outs you want to give, anything you want to say?
Shout-outs to all our fans and sponsors here. I'm really happy about the support that they've given us. And, yeah. Thank you.
All right, well, thanks for joining me again. It sounds like you're fitting in very well with the team, and obviously that is showing in the game as well. So again, best of luck, and thanks again. All right, guys. So now I'm actually, this is going to be fun because I'm going to be joined by a guest that happens to be qualified for TI7. He's going to be going as a player. And one of these teams that, well, let's be honest, not a lot of people maybe expected these guys to be going. But of course, we'll talk about that and plenty more. I'm now going to be joined by Neta. He's also known in-game as 3-3, the offlane player for Planet Dog. Planet Dog there. How's it going, man?
It's going great.
I bet it's going good. You're going to TI.
Yeah, we're pretty happy right now.
I gotta ask, what was the emotion like right after you guys qualify? Like, was it, first off, were you laning by chance, or?
No, we were not boot camping. We were just everyone playing from their home. It was pretty pretty amazing. Like I've never felt such a high in my life, I could say. Like everyone was screaming and yelling. Everyone was super happy. Then we stayed around for a couple of minutes, like we talked a bit about stuff, and then everyone just took off for a while. They called parents or friends, whatever.
I mean, it's a big deal, right? You guys, the prize pool right now is up to $20 million, and then obviously at the very least, you're guaranteed pretty much to get a fair amount of that. But what is that? What's most important to you, the prize pool, or just this opportunity, or what is it, or is it just kind of it all together?
I mean, it's a combination, I suppose. It's more like we have finally achieved the success that we were working on. Like all of us, we are playing Dota for full time for at least I think I've been playing for the littlest time, like professional. I'm playing for 2 years. My teammates have been playing for around the same or some longer. Like J4 has been playing for much longer than me, and this is pretty much the biggest success all of us has ever had. And it sort of validates all of the last couple of years of work. So it definitely feels amazing.
Absolutely. And now let's get a little bit more into this as far as you guys qualifying here at the second spot out of EU. So going into the qualifiers, first off, to be clear, you guys had to win the second open qualifier to even get to this point. After you guys came up short in the first qualifier, how was the feeling then? Were you kind of bummed out, or did you feel like, all right, well, we have another one, we should be good to go? Did you feel confident going into that second qualifier?
Personally, I did not feel so confident. Although, looking back at it, I had no reason not to be confident, because there were some decent teams at the open qualifier, but no teams that I would consider at our level. But yeah, it's just it's quite demoralizing losing the final after you're playing open qualifiers 2 days. You're just playing all day, and then you are losing at the last. At the final stage, it's quite demoralizing. We had a pretty long talk after that. We stayed for a couple of hours to discuss what went wrong and what we should try to improve and focus on the next qualifier. And I guess that helped.
Yeah.
The second qualifier definitely felt much more serious than the first one.
Well, it obviously worked out. You guys qualified in the end. Then I want to if you can think back to then, after you guys qualified, now you have business to take care of. Now you have the regionals. This is tough competition, very good teams in it. Going into the regional qualifiers, I want you to be honest with me. I mean, did you think to yourselves that you had any chance of qualifying?
Well, first of all, we sort of expected to be in the regional qualifiers before the open qualifiers started, because I don't know if you know, but originally we were invited, and then we lost our invite due to a roster change.
That's right.
So it's not like it was some super scary teams for us. We sort of expected to play against them. I would say we thought our chances to qualify were between maybe 20-30%.
Okay.
Something like that.
Not too bad.
Yeah, we definitely thought we could beat enough of these teams.
Well, that proved to be true. And now that you brought it up, I was planning to talk about this anyways here. So this, you guys formerly known as Pro Dota, there was a situation where they dropped the team, whatever it was, then it became 4 of you. You guys had to find a new 5th. First off, with the Pro Dota situation, I don't know how much you want to really get into it, but what exactly happened there? It seemed like that they just kind of dropped you a week or so before these qualifiers.
Not sure how much info I would like to give out, but main point is that the management and Gata has lost faith in us as a team and as players. They didn't think we had a chance to make it. They decided to try their luck with different players, I suppose. So not exactly sure.
Well, can you say that maybe motivated you a little bit, knowing that was the case?
It definitely did. We wanted to not so much prove them wrong, just it looks kind of silly putting it back now, but we wanted to make them angry. We want them to regret what they're doing, because the way we saw it, I'm not sure if I can use such language here, but they kind of fucked us over by sending us into the open qualifier, which is something no team wants to play. But that was like, nobody wants to do it. I've never won an open qualifier. I've even bootcamped for 2 different open qualifiers with Kaipi, and we got smashed in both of them, so I was quite scared of playing it. You never know what happens in those qualifiers.
Oh yeah.
But that was the main issue. About finding a new player, well, it sucks, but it wasn't such a big deal, I would say.
Yeah. How did it come about finding Swift Ending as your new carry then?
Well, frankly, we wanted to ask Swift Ending to join us at first, but he was still playing with Elements, so that was not an option. We all know him. Milan played with him before in Elements. And we all respect him as a player. He just happened to leave Elements, like, was it a week or 2 weeks before we needed a new player, so it was like the obvious choice.
Yeah. All right, seems like he fit pretty well with the team, to say the least. So, again, qualifying in the end after all. Is there a game from the qualifiers that actually really stands out to you? I'm sure winning it all and, beating Mouse Sports in the end, but is there a game maybe from the groups or even earlier on that kind of stands out to you that was a big game for you guys?
We had game 3 against Singularity in the lower bracket. That was a game that we almost lost. I don't know if you've seen that one, but we were like 2 raxes down, and we were about to lose the game, and we made some comeback. Like, we killed the Osai, didn't have buyback, and we ended up pushing the throne in like a minute and a half. That game was like super amazing to win, because we didn't say that. Obviously, it's not the kind of stuff you say in game, but you know that all 5 players are thinking in their head, well, shit, we are done. There's no way that you don't come back from something like that. But at the end, we made it. So.
Yeah, and that's right. You were even down 1-0 against Singularity at that point, so that would have been it, absolutely, in the elimination match. So you won that. You then went on to beat Danish Bears 2-0, and then you were matched up against Mouse Sports. In this grand finals. Now Mouse Sports, a team that of course has done it before. They went to the Boston Major as at Phenom there. Going into that match, did you feel like pumped up? Were you ready, or were you nervous a bit, knowing that you're facing a very good team in Mouse Sports?
I was quite nervous, but I wouldn't say it was because of the team we were facing. It's just because of how high the stakes are. It's very hard to concentrate in a game when the stakes are this high. Playing against Maus, we have played them many times before. I would say it's one of the teams we've played the most out of the European teams.
Okay.
And our record against them has been quite even. As far as I recall, we have been winning and then losing, and then winning and then losing against them. And that kept happening even until the group stage. We beat them in the group stage, and then we lost to them in the first round of the playoffs. So we knew that by that rule we would have to beat them, since we lost the last game. Gave us a bit of confidence.
Yeah. What was the reason for the name Planet Dog, by the way? I mean, did that kind of just come randomly, or is there actually a purpose behind this name?
Well, first of all, we wanted to keep the tag of PD for 2 reasons. First one is to try and mess with PD a little bit.
To spite them a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. And another reason, which is, I would say, the more reasonable reason, is that our tags were locked to PD in the game, since we are registered to Major under PD.
Okay.
So we wanted to keep the tag, pretty much.
Got you. All right, so then Planet Dog, you think of 2 random words, it feels like?
Well, dog is kind of, not sure if you're aware of that, but dog is like pretty common word to be used, at least in our team, or it's like Dota slang, I would say, because for Russians, it's like a very common slang for Russians. So it's a word people use a lot. We thought about using dog, and then we tried to come up with the other word, and I think J4 was the one who suggested Planet just because of Planet Odd, just to steal the format from them pretty much.
I love it.
And we all liked it, so that was it.
It worked. I mean, that was definitely a name people kind of saw, and maybe didn't necessarily expect much out of, even because of the name, if anything. But then again, when you look at the players and realize, oh, this is the former Pro Dota team, I think that you guys qualifying wasn't as big of a surprise when people really understood who the roster was. And I was almost like that myself, going in. I can't say I was, most expecting you guys, but then after you qualified, I even sent out a tweet about it. I was like, you know what? I'm not that surprised. You guys obviously, I've actually casted you guys, throughout this last year here, whether it's on Pro Dota or amongst other teams. I know you played with, I believe, Horde for a bit even throughout the year. So seeing your guys' play, it kind of made sense. Oh, well, not too surprised that you guys qualified in the end right there. So on the name Planet Dog, you're not... Okay, I mean, I guess I should be careful how I word this. Are you guys actually planning to go into TI7 with that name, or are you guys maybe actively seeking a sponsor or something like that?
We are looking for a sponsor, pretty much. We're not sure exactly what will come out of that, but we are looking for a sponsor, yes.
Okay, so you don't have any information you can give us yet, though, on that. Obviously, I don't plan for you to, but
no, there's nothing certain yet.
Nothing certain yet, but you are going to be looking to get a sponsor. Okay, that's what I kind of figured when it comes to going to TI. I'm sure you guys have been contacted at the very least.
Yeah, we have.
When it comes to that. All right, so that's going to be fun to see how that plays out. Now, speaking of TI itself, you guys, this is a little over a month away. I know you're enjoying qualifying right now. Again, that in itself is a very big deal. But the event itself is now going to be happening, and so first off, how are you going to prepare for the event? Do you guys have plans yet, or is that something you're still trying to figure out?
Well, we would like to bootcamp before the event. And naturally, we would like to bootcamp in America, since that's where all the teams would be before TI. Mm-hmm. But the details of when and how and when and where would kind of depend on which organization we would find. And also would depend on when we'll be able to secure our visas.
Okay.
So it's kind of hard to plan for that right now. Right now we are pretty much just thinking about making sure we get visas in time. That's like the most important objective for us.
And that's smart, because that's, that would be the worst case scenario, obviously, if, something happens there. So are you confident right now that is going to take place, or are you kind of just, holding your breath and hopefully it does?
Well, it's hard to say. I want to say I'm confident, but like even a 10% chance of not getting a visa is a pretty huge chance when the stakes are this big. Personally, I don't believe I need a visa, and Kaiser also doesn't need one. Mm-hmm. But the other 3 players do need to get it.
That is one of the cool things about your team, though, to be fair, not that, there's that chance that you may not get visas, hopefully that all happens and you guys get to go and everything. But you're a very diverse team. You have players from all over the place. I mean, yourself, you're from Israel, I believe. You have a player from Greece. You have one from Serbia, one from Bosnia, and one from Belarus, it looks like. So all over the place when it comes to your players. I mean, I guess that kind of just happens. Have you known these guys for a while, or is this kind of, this within this last year that you've started playing with these guys?
I have known Milan for a long time, probably around 2 or 3 years already. I've played with him in a team before, like in my first team, actually. Okay. One of my first serious teams. We've been friends for a long time, but the other ones I do not know for so long. Milan knew Swift, I guess, because they played together for a long time, and Serbia and Bosnia are pretty sure they're kind of similar countries, Like Balkan countries, they speak Serbian, both of them. So it's not such a big difference. Well, at least not for an outsider.
Yeah, don't be saying that in the country, but the outside, I think it's safe to say. Yeah. Well, So, I mean, that is cool, about the team. And have you already kind of felt the impact of you guys qualifying in terms of fans? I'm sure you guys are getting plenty of tweets and everything. Is it kind of cool seeing that as far as, seeing all these fans come out of nowhere, it feels like?
I guess it's nice, but I don't think about it too much.
No, not much of a celebrity.
I mean, I don't feel like we are. So I don't feel like we have that many fans. It's like we just qualified. I guess it is a big deal, but we haven't even played yet, so there is still time.
Hey, I can say behind the scenes at BTS, all the casters and the talent and everything, with your team name was being brought up a lot, and people were kind of, looking into you guys more and realizing, how good of a team that you were. So you got some fans from the BTS hub. I know that.
That's good.
So now you have TI7 coming up. Not again, it's a little further away, but I do got to ask, since I have you on here before we let you go, what are your expectations? How do you expect to do? What would be satisfying for you?
I can say that, like, from our perspective now, like, if we could get into the top 8, that would be a huge success for us. Top 8, like, there are some very good teams in this tournament. I don't believe if in a normal day we could get top 8, but once you reach a LAN and things change, some teams play better, some teams play worse. You never know what would happen. We will be extremely happy with getting top 8.
Does your team have the most LAN experience at all, or do any of you really have any LAN experience?
Yeah, I believe all of us have played a LAN.
Okay. Obviously not TI, but...
no, but J4 did play DAC in the first DAC. So that's a pretty big event. I played WCA beginning of this year. Swift Ending played the Dota Pit, I think. And Milan played some... I don't recall the name of that LAN. It was some game on LAN, I think. It was Empire won it, I think, against 4 Leprechauns. I don't exactly remember.
Game Show Global Esports Cup.
Yeah, that's the LAN.
Looking at that here. Okay. So there is some. Obviously, again, TI kind of is another LAN in itself, but at least you do have that quote-unquote stage experience when it comes to playing there. So, all right. Well, 3-3, really do appreciate it, man, for joining us here to talk about Planet Dog. Any shout-outs you want to give while I have you on?
I just want to give shout-out to my teammates, that's all. I believe you know all of them, so nothing special.
All right, so shout out to the teammates: Swift Ending, Kaiser, Milan, and J4. Right there, there you go. Obviously, a team effort, and again, it was you were one of the more fun storylines to follow, and going to be one of the more fun ones I think to follow going into this TI7 main event. So congratulations again. I know you're enjoying it, but best of luck prepping for it, and we'll see you at TI, man.
Yeah, thank you. I'll see you there.
Okay, so now ready to talk about, once again, what I touched on earlier in the podcast there with the good, the bad, the ugly segment. And joining me to discuss some of these topics, I'm actually going to be joined by Zrock once again. Zrock, how's it going?
Not too bad. Recovering a little from the MDL cast the last couple days, but doing well.
Yeah, we were grinding that over these last couple of nights. For those that may not know that are tuning in, and we are going to be talking about the MDL a little bit, but we have some first-hand experience as we were both casting on the not the tier 2 stream, the secondary stream, I think is a better way to put it. For BTS, there was a lot of time where the 2 matches were going on at the same time, so we were basically covering the other match that the mainstream wasn't casting, of course, and it went very well. There's obviously we got a lot of good matches from that event, but it was overnight, and what my morning lasted till about 9 a.m. this morning before I got to sleep. So
yeah, it was a long night for sure.
Yeah,
we got done at about 8 Eastern from the cast directly. It was an all night ordeal. It was a lot of fun though, and that last game was nuts. But anyway, we'll get to it.
Yeah, we will. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But what I wanted to touch on first is, of course, this big news, big announcement. This is part of my good segment here. The announcement of the 2017-2018 competitive scene is what it's titled here. So pretty much the new structure. Again, I kind of explained it earlier, but to real quickly reiterate, essentially Valve announced a new competitive structure post TI7, how things are going to look, and it mainly surrounds the idea of really putting the efforts on the third-party tournaments, because there's a lot of these complaints that came out recently where third-party tournaments are almost getting to a point where they're just not, I don't want to say worth it, but they're definitely getting excluded in a lot of ways from the big scheme of things. So this is Valve's effort to be like, all right, we want to incorporate third-party tournaments. We're going to have a point structure as a result of that. So again, I kind of explained it earlier, but Zrock, your initial take, what was your initial reaction when you really saw this announcement?
All in all, very, very positive. I think it's a step in the right direction, and it's going to definitely silence a lot of the people that say third-party tournaments weren't getting any weight, while also making it so every third-party tournament doesn't get these benefits. Because if you look at the way the post was written, to be qualified for this, majors and minors alike have to have a qualifier from every single region. And a lot of these third-party tournaments were not doing that. They were either excluding South America, Southeast Asia, they weren't splitting Europe and CIS. So now that there is this general baseline of things they have to do to be considered one of these tournaments, I think overall it's going to be great for the scene.
That is one of the things that definitely is a big plus. I 100% agree. The fact that they are forcing the tournaments again of the 6 major regions, NA, SA, Southeast Asia, China, Europe, and CIS, there has to at least be one qualifier from those. So it definitely, it makes it more of a more of something similar to what the majors were obviously throughout the years, and then going into the actual major TI event. So the major and the minors that they have of this now, it's a $500,000 prize pool that is the minimum for the majors, and then $150,000 for the minor. But on top of that, again, it's being matched by Valve. So we're looking at $1 million prize pool for majors at least, and then $300,000 prize pool for the minors. Is that what? Do you think we're actually going to see a significant amount of majors?
I don't think so, but that also kind of worries me a little bit. Like, if we look at those kind of tournaments, PGL could in theory host something. You could potentially have Star Ladder, Dota Pit. I mean, those are probably the 3 big ones that I could see putting up that kind of money. Maybe an ESL event, but ESL's kind of stepped away from Dota. There's not going to be that many people. I would guess we're going to see 4-ish majors. But my one concern about this is Valve said they're going to be directly involved in scheduling these. And that means they're going to have an estimate in mind of how many majors and minors they want going into this.
Yeah.
And all it says is you have to have one team, one qualifier from each region. It doesn't say anything about how many teams you can invite. It doesn't say anything about that. And I'm a little bit nervous with how strong ACE is in China as an organization, that if that major schedule isn't filled up, ACE will have multiple tournaments with, half Chinese teams and then one of each qualifier. That's my little conspiracy theory concern right here. Because with the way these points are being laid out, it would be very helpful for ACE and Starladder and the Chinese organizations to host every major they could.
You know what? I didn't actually think of that perspective. I'm glad you kind of brought that up, because that is true. I mean, I guess there is nothing from what we see right now from the information that they've given us that could prevent them from doing that. Because, there is no maximum, as you pointed out, and they are allowed to obviously invite their own team. So now the other side of that is that ideally, teams from these other regions get the top spots, or do well enough to a point where the points that all these other Chinese teams are getting are maybe going to be insignificant. But I think that this kind of leads me to this overall thing of this whole topic here, is that, to be fair, it's still not really a lot of information that we have yet. We've gotten the very basic structure of what the plan is. But I think one of the biggest things we're also missing, on top of what you're saying there, but how many points is it going to be? What is the weight? What's the scale? Like, what are we looking at when it comes to these points and it being fair?
Yeah, I'm actually really hoping that with the way this is worded, they say there will be points per dollar awarded as part of it, and majors will be worth more points per dollar, as well as being substantially more money. So I'm hoping what this ends up doing is making it so that the biggest of the best teams, the top 4 teams in the world, quit going to minors. That's what I'm actually hoping, is that if you win a major, or at the very least the closest major to TI, you're guaranteed your invite. it's going to make it so invites aren't question marks anymore. And once we actually know the details of this format, we may see the EGs, the OGs not playing in these $250,000, $300,000 minors because they're already qualified for TI.
Is that good or bad though? You're sounding like that's good because you like the amateur scene, you like developing it, yeah.
And to be fair, like these players are the same players that complain about burnout and playing too many tournaments. If they know their Valve invite is secure for TI, there's really no reason for them to go play those tournaments.
Isn't that kind of, on the other side of it, though, isn't that kind of one of the issues that ultimately why maybe something like this is happening? Because one of the issues that's been brought up is that teams like an OG, like an EG, aren't competing in some of these other events because they feel like they don't have to. Because they got top 4 in OG's case, they won the last major. Why should they bother playing in some of these events that are happening in between? And ultimately, doesn't that hurt then the third-party tournament that's putting on the event?
Not if it becomes standard that they're not going to go compete in them. If it becomes one of those things that if you're hosting a minor, you're not getting EG, OG, VP, say newbie or something, and they're not coming, then your viewership doesn't take that big of a hit as long as you're not the one tournament that was the odd man out that didn't get those teams. I think everyone's just become so conditioned that EG is going to go play all these tournaments and these teams are in, and if they're not in, then they're going to just not watch that one because they'll be in the next one. And if it becomes standard that you have to look forward to watching your best team in your region, where you have to wait 2 months before they're going to play another tournament, I think that's great for the scene overall. But it turns these tournaments then into a lot more hype. If EG loses a major, but there's 2 $500,000 tournaments on either side of it right now, and they win both of those, who cares? It's just a major they lost, whatever.
Yeah. It was interesting. I forget who had posted it. I want to say it was Knoxville, one of the stats guys there, and he made a post about if we were to use this system from this previous year, and obviously we don't know exactly the points, but kind of created a point system as a result based on what they've suggested. It came to a point where the top 6 teams actually were the teams that were invited to TI. So I do kind of wonder if Valve has almost already had this system in place to an extent. It's just something that they haven't made public, though. It's something that they really haven't told the tournament organizers, but they kind of, behind the scenes have been already putting points, putting values even on tournaments out there. And that wouldn't surprise me at the very least.
Oh, it's definitely been a factor thus far. Has it been a cut and dry deciding factor? I would say no. I think there's definitely a little bit of leeway there. But for the most part, yeah, I agree. I think this has been how it's been for a while, and they've wanted it to be this way. So I'm sure they've had some type of an internal point system to at least get like top 8. And then from there you pick it based on other options. But yeah, I definitely think that this has already existed in Valve's mind. And making it public is a huge step forward.
That's the biggest thing for me. The transparency, because whenever this topic's brought up, the transparency has kind of been, it ultimately roots from that, where we just don't fucking know. I mean, we don't know what their ultimate, their idea is as far as selecting these teams, and we always keep going back to that. No, I mean, I could sit here and argue that that's kind of nice as somebody that's in a position, as we're doing a podcast show here, the idea that it allows us to speculate, but now we're just going to have a system that just simply tells us instead of which team is going to be going as the invite team. And so, like, I kind of relate it to like college football, for example.
That's a nightmare.
I know, and it's college football has its own issues, and with this whole ranking system, and how they determine teams and everything.
Strength of schedule decides if you make it. Yay.
Exactly. But I will say this: people talk about college football and that every single week because of how it's set up. There is no absolute system there, and there's no like absolute points. Where this is going to kind of take away from that idea and away from almost that hype, I think you could argue.
But on this flip side, it lets our conversations go from speculation to storyline building. Now going into a major, we know newbie is going to need to get third, or EG needs to win. And then we can start building these storylines and laying them out for people. And it gives you something else to root for. It'll actually be really interesting to see how this comes down when we get to, say, the last major before TI invites next year. Because I'm curious to know how many teams are going to be on the bubble, and that one major's results are going to determine who goes and who doesn't.
What do you think about the idea that they're going with where going back to the points, the players, the maximum of 3 players on each team is only what's going to count. You know, this is to help foster new players maybe coming into the scene and some roster changes in general. I was trying to think about it, like, is there really a way that can be abused? I don't know if it can be necessarily, but...
Abused, not necessarily. What it can lead to, though, is, I mean, kind of what I'm going to call the complexity situation at this point, where they've got their core 3 in Moose, Swindle, and Z-Freak, and they've just been cycling that pair forever. And in this current system, it's not going to knock them out of the standings at all, just to constantly cycle those 2 players until they find something that works. So I think it's a step in the right direction in encouraging teams to stay together. And I'm not sure if I'm reading too far into this, but with the way it's worded, it's explicitly stating the team's 3 players. So it almost makes it seem like you won't be able to change organizations as well and maintain your points. That's what I'm really curious to see.
Huh. Okay, so I'm reading it here. Only the top 3 point earners on a team will contribute toward a team's effective total qualifying points.
So it can be interpreted either way. A team could mean as long as you just have, like, you can build any 5 you want and they just take the top 3 points and that's your team's points.
Yeah.
Or it could be that you have a team and 3 of their members are the only ones that get their points from as long as they've been on that team. We'll have to see which direction Valve goes on it. That's the part I'm a little nervous about, though, because if they let players go freelance, the last roster shuffle right before TI, like the last lock periods, there's going to be one major. It'll probably be after the last major. Then I could see teams just saying, oh, we got 3 high point earners here. Let's make a team. And they just drop all their orgs and go off on their own and make 3 super high point earners plus 2 people they want to play with. And then they just get a TI invite.
What's the benefit? So you're saying if complexity happened and realized that they were qualifying for TI, Swindle, Z-Freak, and Moo would just be like, screw you, Furo and Demon in this case or whatever, and then pick up 2 other players?
They could do that, or on the flip side, say, like, Moo is having a really good start to his year and wins 2 majors. But then complexity just goes big downhill. And then, say, EG has a good record, but they're coming up just short of TI. There's nothing to stop them from just dropping their 5th player on EG, picking up Moo, getting the point bump, and then all of a sudden EG's in TI.
Okay.
Because he's now a top earner.
Yeah, so that's what I guess I kind of... See, this goes back to, it's like, this isn't really fleshed out just yet. It is a very simple idea. Not simple even, but it's very basic in terms of what they're telling us, because I was thinking about that too. Like, if a tournament's worth 100 points or whatever, and the top team gets 50 points for winning it,
yeah,
how does that break down? Does each player get 50 points?
Yeah, that'll be how they
go. You think so?
Yep.
It's not going to be like individual. It's not going to be like 10 for each player.
It does the same thing in the end. If you break it down per player, you're just basically reducing the total number of points by.
But does it though? No, I don't know if it does. Well, because I guess if it's 50 for each player, I feel like the impact of then a Moo leaving and then going to EG or whatever is going to be higher impact than if he was to only have the 10 points.
But if that's the way they're doing it across all the tournaments, if a major's worth 50 per player or 10 per player, that means a minor's worth 10 or 2. All you're doing is reducing it by a factor of 5. Yeah. It doesn't change anything other than the number you see.
Okay. No, it's hard to really, visualize, I guess, but I think you're right.
The only thing, as I said, I'm super concerned about is the time waiting on it, because if winning the first major of the early cycle ends up being worth a lot of points, a player that wins a major and does well, but his team starts crumbling, is very, very likely to get poached over to another team.
Is that necessarily bad?
I don't like roster moves. I think we're getting close to a point where I want to start seeing dynasty teams again, where I want to see 4 to 5 members that stick together for a year. I really do think that would be super cool for the scene. I think it would help it grow. It would make it so much easier for fans. I don't know. All in all, I like it a lot if we could get those longer teams.
Yeah, this goes back to the player contracts in general, with their teams, and how that's always just such a thing that's almost non-existent. I mean, they exist, but as far as, sticking to it, it feels like it's not really held up, so...
Once we actually get the numbers on how this is going to lay out and get the whole schedule, definitely look to see a lot more strict contracts coming out on players. I think we're going to see a serious tightening on some of these contracts, because right now most of them are so loose.
It puts a value on the players. I think that's how you pointed out there. It really does. Like, we actually have a way to value players now, because of how they do add events earlier on in the season, especially. And then, later on, if that team falls apart or whatever, then they could go to, said organization and be like, well, I'm worth this much because I have this many points. Yeah, that is going to be a very interesting part of it with the points here. So,
and this is going to make it the last point I want to touch on here real quick. This is going to make the tournament structures matter more than they've ever mattered in the past. This is going to make qualifier structures matter a lot more than they ever have. Because if it's some stupid round robin thing with a bad tiebreaker rule to decide the qualifier for, say, I don't know, the America region, and say like a no-name team slips into a major because of it, which could totally happen. Wheel almost made it to the playoff stage of this last qualifier. And I'm not saying they're a no-name team or they're bad, but they're definitely not what would be a top point earner. And so then, say, Complexity or DC or NP misses their slot to the major because of that. It could essentially just screw up TI and the whole year for that team. So I really hope tournament admins put some money into it, put some time into it, and get the right people to make sure the structures are good.
Well, Valve did mention that they're going to assist with the scheduling, as you even touched on too, but I have to think they're also going to be insisting, right? They're going to be like insisting that they really have these structures of formats, especially if they're also giving them money as well. I feel like Valve is going to have a hand in that. I know they don't necessarily say that here, but
they kind of do. They said they're going to be selecting the tournaments to sponsor. So
that's okay, yeah.
They could, in theory, go to the people that have done it right in the past. But
that, or make a point that you run it this way, or we just don't help you out at all, kind of deal. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, this all really goes back to, again, that this is the third party tournament. This is Valve going, you know what? You've brought up your point over these last couple of years. Now put up or shut up, basically, right? It's they're giving third party tournaments the chance now to be heavily involved and to kind of run the season really for Dota 2 and give them what they've really wanted for a long time now. So.
And it's going to put a little more weight on the people with the money versus the people with the technology. Like, all these majors that we've had thus far have been pretty close to third-party tournaments. That's PGL or ESL or MLG or these other organizations that basically run the tournament, but it's not the person that was sponsoring the prize pool. That was always Valve in the majors. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes when somebody like StarLadder gets a big hand in deciding these kind of things.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about the idea that the weighting of the points is also going to be influenced by when the tournament takes place?
I think that's great. I really want to see it be a fairly aggressive weighting. I want to see like the first major of the year, the one we're going to have come October-ish or November. I want to see that be like a quarter of what the last one before TI is.
Yeah.
Because teams tend to hold form for roughly 3 months. If you're a good team, yes, you can push past it, but when a new patch comes, every team has to reevaluate. We're going to have multiple major patches before the next TI. And yeah, I think you have to time weight it, or you could end up with a situation where like some no-name team is back and they just bomb out in the group stage.
For me, that's the biggest thing. The patches, again, I even stressed, especially after it was the Boston Major, how we were basically playing a different game in a lot of ways, with 7.0 obviously coming out, and when that happens, you can't value a Boston Major result for 6 months later in terms of determining whether or not that team deserves to go. So
the thing is, the way the system's set up, it will be valued. It'll just be valued at a lower amount. I do think it should be valued. You did something.
Well, see, that actually just got me thinking now. If we were to run this, again, this all goes back to, depends on how many points there are, but would Ad Phenom be an invite team to TI? I mean...
because it would have been 2 majors ago. They haven't done much at the majors since. Yeah, no, I don't think so. They didn't do well in Kiev. I don't think they would.
They played at a couple lands, but they did pretty poor overall, so it wouldn't have been much influence on their points.
You got to think, I'm guessing 3 to 4 majors and maybe 8 minors is probably what we're going to be looking at next year. It's not going to be a major every month. That's what I know a lot of people were wondering when this first came out. Are we just going to have all of these orgs that have the money getting the tournaments then, and we'll have a monthly China major? No. Valve is going to schedule these out, so there's a big patch between each major, kind of the same way they've done. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's going to be as different as we all think. It's just going to be the fringe teams, like the teams that were close to the invite list this year, secret, it's going to be them that this affects.
Is there a city that you would really like to see a major in, if you had the choice?
If I had the choice,
I'm going to go San Diego.
Seoul.
Korea?
South Korea. Yeah.
Really?
Yep. I think that's a scene that has struggled to find serious Dota traction. They've got some players, they had some teams, and it's kind of fallen out. But I think the city is super cool to host an esport. Their infrastructure is second to none in food, travel, transportation, internet. It would be like the smoothest major we've probably ever ran. And visa issues aren't usually too bad to get there. All in all, I think it would be a nice place to have one and could go a long ways towards bringing Korea back on the map in Dota.
What about South America?
There's been a few lands down there. CS had a huge tournament in Sao Paulo 5 months ago. Mm-hmm. And I think it would be cool. The struggle you have when you have them in places like that, though, is what language do you broadcast the cast in? You're in South America, so do you do it in Spanish? Do you do it in... I mean, if you're in Brazil, it's got to be Portuguese. So then the Peruvians can't understand it. The Americans, like the English speakers, can't understand it. It gets to be a huge issue because if it's not a major region with multiple teams, then once the home team is out and all the casual fans that just stop by because it was in their city leave, then what does it do?
How do the Olympics do it? I want to say, honestly, I feel like the Olympics, they always have it in English. Because that's just the world language, basically.
I literally don't know. Can you even hear announcers when you're at the Olympics watching?
Well, when they're like introducing players and stuff for events like on track and field, it might vary. Yeah. I really don't know, honestly.
I don't either.
It would probably be like one and then the other like after. So yeah, they're not doing full blown cast there. You are right. That's a good point.
So that's my biggest concern is what language do you do it in if you have one in South America? Because they're only going to have 1 to 2 teams there. And if those get out, half the crowd's going to leave. And then all you're left with are the diehard fans that flew down and the players. I think English should... I don't know. This is going to sound just, America kind of thing. But I feel like it would be nice to just have a standard set where it's English. But majors in Shanghai, it's like half the field is Chinese. And they all speak Mandarin, so yeah, I don't know. It's tough, but I think that would be the struggle if you had it in a region that has teams, but not many teams.
Yeah, that's
a good point. You said what? San Diego, San Francisco,
San Diego. I think would be fun. Yeah, it's a beautiful city.
Never been to Cali,
or something like that. Comic-Con, yo, got tons of stuff there.
Oh, fair enough. It'd be interesting. Depending on what kind of venue they could secure and how that would all go. I know ESL, when they did their one in New York, it felt kind of awkward because they did it in Madison Square Garden's theater, not the actual arena. And they struggled to even fill that. And it just felt open and empty and just kind of weird.
Yeah. Boston Major did pretty well. I got to go there and filled up pretty well, so... It'll all depend, time and everything. So, but yeah, no, that's going to open up opportunity now for, even broader. Obviously, we had 3 the year before, we had 2 this last year, of course. So, like you said, if things kind of work out, maybe expect 4 or so majors, possibly even a couple more.
Yeah, I'd say 3 to 4 is going to be the sweet spot. Any more, and you're getting way too clustered. I think you're going to want at least 2 months between them, and there's still TI in there. Mm-hmm. That's not going to be considered a quote unquote major. So. Yeah, we'll have to see. I'm more curious to see what they do with the minors, because I could see minors almost being a regional event, right? You got your Manila minor, where you've got 2 or 3 Southeast Asian teams invited, a couple of the top teams, and then the qualifiers that are mandatory. Mm-hmm. Then you have China's minor, where you have 6 Chinese teams, and then the qualifiers. And I'm curious to see how the minors are going to go as far as invites versus qualification slots.
Well, just kind of at a theory, like on top of our head here, a major compared to a minor, what place should first place minor in a minor tournament be compared to a major? Is it equivalent to like a 7th, 8th place finish, would you say, of a major? I mean, is there... Like that's tough, right? Because you'd expect that there's still going to be decent teams at these minors, if not even top tier teams, willing to field some points. Or is it just going to be a point where minors are like so small that none of the top tier teams will want to go, and it's just going to be for amateur teams or tier 2 teams even?
I mean, that's exactly the big question we all have. I would like to see minors valued substantially lower than majors. Yeah, like 7th, 8th would be a good way to do it, in my opinion. Then if you do well enough at one major, like more than likely, depending on the time waiting, if you do well enough at either the one right before TI or the one before that, and you get, say, top 2, you basically punched your slot to TI, then I would like that system, because I don't want the minors to be worth enough that EG feels like they need to go to it or VP needs to go to it to make TI. Mm-hmm. I don't want it to be the decider for a huge team. I want it to be those fringe teams, the secrets and the newbies right now. Those are the teams I want to see playing in minors as the best teams.
I agree. Yeah, it's you got to be careful with the taking just tier 2 teams, because you have to have some decent, some somewhat relevant teams in the event as well. It can't just be all, these next.
I mean, one of my favorite tournaments was that Galaxy Battles. That would be essentially be considered all tier 2 teams, and it was a super cool tournament.
Was it?
I liked the games. Yeah, I did. I did.
But I mean, even that had a TI invite team in newbie. You had Planet Odd and
that's what I mean by tier 2. I don't mean the open qualifier level teams from the main qualifiers this year. I just mean you get rid of the top 4.
Okay, that's fair. Anyway, okay, guys. So I'm sure they'll release more information as time goes on. Possibly not until after TI7, if anything. But and when that does, we'll obviously talk more about it. But getting some initial reaction out and what to expect. But it ultimately sounds like both you and I, and really from all the reaction that I saw, we're all ready for we're all like, this is good. This is a positive direction. If anything, it shows that Valve is listening and they are trying to improve, which is good for everyone. So,
and to be honest, as long as Valve keeps up with this transparency, we potentially could know the entire yearly major and minor schedule come, say, a month after TI. And that would be amazing, because then the third-party teams that want to do the really small tournaments, they've got a $20,000 LAN. That opens them up to playing around the schedule so much more, not having anything interrupt it. Stuff like Dream League can then run without hitches.
Yeah, Dream League loves this, I'm sure.
It'd just be super good if they will publish the entire schedule as it gets developed. Yeah.
And that's a very high possibility. It really is. So props to Valve. Looking forward to it. Can't wait. All right. Something else, though, I wanted to bring up here. This I talked about in my ugly portion now of my earlier segment. And it has to do with mainly from Eternal Envy kind of making a blog post even about it. But other players have at least brought it up too. Been a little bit vocal. Valve told the teams basically that are going to TI7 that they're only able to fund for 6 members of the team. So obviously you got the 5 players as well as, a coach, whatever you want it to be, that 6. And that means, pay for the hotel, travel, food, whatever. Anyone else extra, like you can bring other people, you'll just need to then take care of their costs yourselves. Now, as I kind of touched on a little bit in my previous segment, for me, this is a step down from what they previously did of what was 8, I believe it was.
7.
Was it 7?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is only one less.
PPD's old video logs used to talk about how they'd fight over who got the room, the single room.
Okay, so this is only one less then. So my thing is with this is that I think that I get why Valve is doing it. Again, this is a money saver of sorts, and them trying to get a little more efficient in the big picture of things. However, whenever you go from more to less, even if it's just 1 in this case, there's naturally going to be outcry and people are going to be upset about it. How do you feel on this idea that this decision was made?
Well, let me start by asking you, if you can only bring 6, who do you bring? Who's your 6th?
Well, obviously you got your 5 players and then, your coach, right? That just seems like the obvious choice to me.
You say coach, but a lot of times in a lot of these teams, the manager, especially if they're foreign language speaking teams, is the only one that's bilingual, that speaks English in their home language. Yes, Valve will provide you a translator, but they're not around 24/7. And in that kind of situation, if you don't speak the language, you're in a big city like Seattle, and you want something as simple as food. it can be a problem. If the teams are trying to get their schedules all set up, a player should not be stressed out enough to worry about, do I need to be at X place at Y time to make sure I'm not late or missing a match, or I need to be in the practice room at this time. You have to have a manager there. You really do. It's almost unplayable. Like, you can't play your best without one there. I think it hurts even more than not having a coach.
Well, what about, are you insisting that Valve doesn't have anyone that's going to be willing to help the players at all when it comes to that? I mean, I feel like that they have staff for that, right? Like, they have people that's there to take care of that.
They generally assign each foreign language team a translator who is available for them, but it doesn't mean they're around with all, like, it's a team. All 5 players aren't going to be right next to each other 24/7. Some of them may want to go get some food and no one's hungry, or they want to go run off and see Pike's Place Market or something like that. And then you still only have one translator for the team. And if you need somebody to call and ask questions to, like, the manager is crucial in that stuff. Or if, like, Valve does a bunch of promo materials, like the team intro videos, things like that. Making sure you get to those on time and that you've got your transportation all figured out and everything like that's done. The managers do more at these LANs than anyone would give them credit for. It is very stressful. It takes a lot of time. And if a player has to do that, they're not playing at their best in the tournament.
I don't think anyone's going to argue that managers don't really do enough to warrant them not being there. I mean, I agree with you 100% there that, yes, managers are important for these teams and to make sure that they're comfortable, that they're not, out of place and that they don't have to worry about that stuff. I 100% agree on all ends there. Again, I do definitely still think that. Now, I'm speaking from my history with Han here, to be fair. Because obviously I've never been to TI and I don't know 100% exactly how it truly works out. But from my experience on the Han side of things, and whenever we've ran events at these LANs and everything, we do have people assigned that are there to take care of the players and, even translators in some case or whatever, to make sure that they are being taken care of and watching them. And, they're available for access if they ever do need anything. I assume Valve works as same. Yes, are they going to be their buddies and their friends, and that is going to 100% be there at the second, like maybe their actual manager would be? Possibly not. But they are doing enough to warrant it being okay in my mind. I don't think that there needs to be that absolute extreme, like, They need to absolutely fund for this manager just because of that. They're not happy with maybe relying on Valve's person instead.
I mean, I'll say firsthand, when I was in Shanghai, I spent a lot of time with Complexity and a lot of time with Archon. And even at the event, 3 of the players after they were out still wanted to go watch Dota. The other 2 stayed in the hotel. One of them, and I'll call him, I don't think he'll care, Monkeys Forever, literally didn't speak any Mandarin, obviously. The translator went with the team to the arena. And when he wanted to eat, the only thing he ate for 4 days was cheese pizza from the hotel because it was the only thing he knew how to order. Like, that is the stuff that I've seen happen. And
was that a Valve event?
Yeah, that was the Shanghai Major.
That was the Shanghai Major? Okay.
It was the biggest Valve event outside of TI at the time. And the teams got one cell phone they could use across the entire team that had cell service there. So it wasn't like they could just call and ask somebody from Valve. It's just one of those things, without your manager, it just gets so complicated, and there's all these little things that no matter how well you plan for, they can happen. And that's the issue. You're worrying about the potential of a problem, not whether there is one immediately.
So if that's the case, I think that is more that's something that Valve does need to look at then, and if they are going to make this decision to take it down by one person, then they do need to absolutely make sure that they have that person that fills in instead. But I guess on the other side of this, so you asked me the question, who would I bring, and you happen to say the coach. Okay, what if I said manager? Then
I would agree with you there. I think that's the best person to bring out of the group, because the coach can do 90% of his job remotely. He can still talk to you on Skype. He can still do that kind of thing. But then he's missing out on your body language, your emotions in a game. I mean, they're missing out on things that can definitely help. And, to be honest, we're talking about a tournament for $25 million. They can spare enough to pay for a couple extra people to come. Like, I don't want to be the Scrooge here, but because the prize pool is going to be about $25 million, that means Valve made $75 million on it.
Yeah, obviously, yes. They have the money. I mean, there's no question there. They absolutely could. And yes, you could look at this at them being maybe a little bit greedy. What I brought up earlier, and I'm curious what you think about this, is that you could also argue, though, that in Valve's defense, that this is them preparing for the future in a lot of ways. This is them making sure the stability is going to be there down the line. And what I mean by that is that, yes, we're going to have a 25 million prize pool this year, possibly, which is obviously going to be more than last year. But we've talked about this. There's eventually going to be a peak, right? There's eventually going to be a peak with the prize pool. It's going to max out at some time, whether that's in this next year or so. And then it's going to start going down. It's going to start going down in later years. And then what happens? Does it just get to a point where Valve just says, all right, this isn't sustainable anymore. We're just going to throw it away. Or are they just preparing now for when that inevitably happens and going to set a standard now rather than reacting later on when that prize pool does start going down? And that could almost make it seem like it's starting to be a downfall across the board because there's less prize pool. Well, now there's less players and so on, or less teams even. So I think this is them, again, setting a standard for moving forward rather than them just being straight up greedy.
I mean, I can understand your point there, but to me, WESG even, they had their qualifier in Sao Paulo, that nationalistic tournament that kind of turned out to be a train wreck outside of China. They did their qualifiers even, and they had lands for those. And they were going to pay for 6 to fly to Lima, Peru, and put you up in a hotel and everything. Or Sao Paulo, Brazil, sorry. But if a $50,000 prize pool qualifier can pay for an extra person to come, like, it's just a health of the game thing. Even if the prize pool goes down, Valve still needs to make sure this tournament is the peak of accommodation. It's got to be the most prestigious event, the best quality event for the year. It is their headline event. And even if they were spending more money than it was worth for TI, the residual impact of it is huge. We get new viewers watching, we get new players into the game. Like, whether it's profitable from just the Battle Pass sales or not shouldn't even be a factor in this. It's part of the health of the game. And if the game's going to stick around, I feel like they need to do it. I even think they should, in all honesty, do eight people. It should be the owner, the manager, and the coach. And then the 5 players. Because to me, there is, especially for the smaller organizations and the lesser regions, not lesser, but the less developed regions, let's say that, there's not a lot in it for these team owners. They're putting money in, and yeah, they're getting their little cut out of everything that's not a huge major tournament, but it'd be really nice to see them get something back for this. I know, like, Infamous from Peru, he would love to go. And I'm sure it's the same way for a lot of the Southeast Asian teams. I just feel like that's something you earned as a team and as an org, and you're all one family, and the family deserves to go.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if you have this information, by the way, but what another point I did want to bring up is, and I know others are too on this, and I understand, like, the other side of it, but I'm curious what your take is on it. If they really feel like they do need that coach, if they really feel like they do need that 8th person, they're getting a guaranteed amount here from this event, absolutely. In fact, last year, the top 16, last place was $100,003 or $103,000, I believe it was. Why can't the teams just pay for that if they truly feel like they
in the
need
less
those people
developed
out there?
countries, you're not paid out till after the tournament, so they literally, a lot of them don't have the money. If you're talking some of the Southeast Asian teams, you're talking a $1,400+ flight and a hotel room for 2 weeks. You maybe don't have that $3,000 available. And even if you do have the money and get them there, and even get them in the same hotel as their team, they're not going to be on the same floor. They're not going to be right next to them. It's just, it's not perfect. It's so far from perfect.
Yeah, I find the money argument a little hard to believe when just the idea that you could sell yourself, like, we're guaranteed $100,000, like, please sponsor us, this much money, and you get your money back, kind of deal. Like, I feel like there's that opportunity there. It wouldn't be that difficult to truly get that money.
That part I agree.
Case, but
there'd be very little stopping someone from going to an investor and saying, "Hey, we'll even give you double back what you pay for this. Get us here, and the money will come."
But it's the hassle, no doubt. I that is a fair point. It's, again, I want to be, I do want to be careful with how I am making this argument here for Valve. That I understand it does maybe sound a little, money hungry, or like, I'm for the business side, fuck the man kind of deal. But it's not the case. I'm really keeping the idea of what their perspective is, because clearly they had a reason to do this. I doubt it was just 100% that Valve was just like felt like assholes one day and was like, let's just screw them over and send one less player as a result, or one less team member. But
so TI is an interesting situation because I feel like it should be 8, basically, like I said, and that should be a Valve paid thing, and it just is what it is. But for the majors, I don't think that many people would be all that upset if the cost for the extra 2 people, your coach and your manager, was taken directly out of the prize pool. Even if that was done to make sure that it was going to happen. Not that many people are going to care if a tournament's 500. Well, in this case, it'll be $1 million or 980,000. Like, yeah. It's one of those things that it improves the quality of the event for the players, the teams, everybody so much. And yes, it's a lot of money to do, but it's negligible in the total prize pool,
It is. It is, and that takes away a little bit of the marketing side of like they can no longer then say it's $100,000 prize pool though, or like a $1 million prize pool at that point. But yes, it is very negative. I know you brought up the same point actually with the regional qualifiers. The top 8 teams or whatever, they go to a LAN event. You just take a little bit out of that chunk of massive prize pool from TI, and you set it up for that. So yes, there is the money there, and there is opportunity for it, but. I mean, again, and I 100% get why the players would be upset at this. If anything, it goes back to because it is change in the backwards direction, in the wrong direction in their mind, as having one person less. But it was a decision that was made clearly by Valve. We'll see if that backfires or not moving forward. Ultimately, I don't know how much control the players have in this. Frankly, I mean, they kind of, what can they do really in the end? It's just going to be up to Valve to if they feel like there's enough backlash, and maybe they'll up it again, but.
I mean, Valve's made a couple moves like this that are just odd in recent years. I remember, I think it was last year with DC, Sajidin didn't get a player's jacket. None of the managers got them. And it's like, that's a $100 expense. And Valve didn't give those to the managers. They've done it every year before, and they all of a sudden decide not to. And it was just one of those things that it costs so little in the grand scheme of things for Valve, but it means so much to the actual people that get them, and causes a huge backlash. I mean, the public backlash was huge for that post.
Yeah. That is silly. I didn't even hear about that, but yeah, stuff like that does seem pretty silly, right? When you really look at it, so.
Yeah.
Well, all right. On that fun subject there, I think we can transition now into MDL. Let's talk about MDL here. And we mentioned earlier that we were both casting it throughout the nights here into the wee mornings. Having a lot of fun with that, though. The round robin stage, of course, casting the other matches that were going on. But by other I mean, we had a lot of really good matches, including the very last one.
I wouldn't have even said an A and a B stream because, like, I would ask what match we were doing, and I had an expectation in my mind, and I was only right half the time. We got some really insane games.
Yeah, they kept it to just pretty much what it happened to line up with. It wasn't like, oh yeah, we'll take the important match. It was just if we had a good match and we had one. So, as far as breaking it down real quickly, again, so this is an 8-team tournament. You had Invictus Gaming, Newbie, OG, Evil Geniuses, LGD, LFY, Clutch Gamers, and Vici Gaming. So again, 6 of these teams are actually going to TI. 4 of them even invited, of course. Clutch and Vici Gaming being the ones that are left out there. But they played in the round robin best of 1 against each other. Ultimately, OG actually finished in first place 5-2, despite losing their first 2 games. They started 0-2 and went 5-2 in the end. Then you had LGD, LFY, and Newbie to round out the top 4. EG, Vici, and Invictus Gaming and Clutch round out the bottom 4. But so let's start at the beginning here. First thing's the format of the round robin best of 1s. I think you and I both agree. Not the best format. People need to probably stop doing this format.
Yeah, I mean, round robin is okay if you're only using it as like initial seeding, but the problem then to me is the games don't really matter. Best of 1 round robin especially just leads to way too many ties. If they do the best of 2 format like TI is going to, where you win both, you get 3 points, you split, you each get 1, that can break a lot of these ties up, and I think that's an okay format to use, but still not optimal. I've said a long time, Swiss is just better. But yeah, I don't even mind GSL. I think that's what you prefer, isn't it?
Oh, I like GSL. I honestly like Swiss in the end, though. I mean, I saw a lot from Kiev, and you've definitely convinced me in a lot of ways. I would love to start seeing Swiss if they're going to be running these initial group stages, but I would definitely rather see GSL, though, over a round-robin best-of-1. I mean, as we even saw yet again in this event, teams are only playing 7 games initially, and ultimately we had a chance that there was going to be a 4-team tiebreaker. Like, that was very possibly going to happen.
There was a 4-team tiebreaker. They just used rules instead of games, thankfully.
Well, it was kind of funny because, so you're right, because LGD, LFY, Newbie, and Evil Geniuses all finished with a 4-3 record. However, it happened that Evil Geniuses lost to all 3 of those teams. So they were automatically put down, but they beat OG somehow, right? Yeah, that'll happen, I guess. So they did that, and then you had Newbie, LFY, and LGD. Now, originally they actually were going to play tiebreaker matches, and it was kind of hilarious watching the BTS stream because Coddle Guy and Gods, I think, and then KBBQ, they were on there, and you could tell
they were almost
like,
crying.
they were so depressed, and like, we're really doing tiebreakers, and because it was to ultimately determine which team OG would choose to play. Like, yeah, so basically, it made no sense.
Basically, the way the format's set up for the winners bracket seeding, OG was supposed to get to pick between 3rd and 4th place and decide which one they wanted to play, and then LGD would play the other one. Or whoever got seeded second. So they had to figure out who was second, so they weren't allowed to be picked by OG. When BTS cut to the break, their stream title was like BTS Hub versus Round Robin or something. It was great.
Versus tiebreakers,
Yeah, versus tiebreakers. Yep. But in the end, the Chinese teams all talked a little bit. Jack was laughing about this with me right after it last night. He said, yep, they all said, we don't care if we play OG or not, so we'd rather go sleep.
Yeah. They don't care enough. It was later on in the night for them, obviously, at that point, and
it was only like 12 hours till it was going to start again. So if they played a full best-of-3 tiebreaker, there's a chance they go 1-1-1 and replay the tiebreaker. Or even if they don't and actually come to a winner and a loser, then they're only getting like 6-7 hours of sleep. This was definitely the best option.
Yeah, I'm glad that they settled with this. Now, OG ended up choosing LGD, by the way. And actually, as we're recording this, it's kind of interesting because MDL is currently, it did start here a couple hours, or like an hour ago. That's the first match that's happening. And LGD actually is leading OG 1-0 right now. So
LGD would not have been my pick out of those 3.
I was a little surprised about that too.
Yeah, I would have said FY would have probably been my first choice. Even Newbie looked a little sloppier. Like, LGD's gameplay looked really good. But I do want to get back to Swiss here just for one little sales pitch, because anyone who's going to watch this is getting posted when? Tomorrow?
Listen to this. No one watches this. But yeah, it's posted on Friday, yeah.
Right now, there is a CSGO tournament going on using entirely Swiss. And it's going to seed the playoff brackets, and it's going to pick certain teams to get totally knocked out. It's going to move some teams to the playoffs. And what this results in, when you have the right number of teams and do this format correctly, by the 3rd round, you have a team looking to already make the playoffs, and you have a set of matches where teams are already looking to be eliminated at this point. And so by the 3rd game in this entire essentially round-robin-esque Swiss system, C9 and Tyloo are fighting for their life. Heroic and VP are fighting for their tournament life. And teams like NIP and Liquid are just trying to make the playoffs and be done and get a day break. And it leads to these storylines that just, they're so much better than round robin. Every game matters.
Yeah, no, I wish TI did that. I really did. I thought that was a possibility with the Kiev doing it, and they didn't, unfortunately. Now it's again, what they chose, I think is going to be fine too. Best of 3.
Yeah,
but
18 teams also makes it almost impossible to do a proper Swiss bracket. It has to be 6. Yeah. It has to be 16.
That's a good point.
We'll see. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how this goes, and Swiss is definitely getting more traction as people start to understand it a little better. But talking about the series as a whole, I mean, I'm just going to cut way forward here. The last series of group stage, we got to do EG versus LFY, and a lot of you have probably seen the Twitter post, the Reddit clip, the everything there. EG got to feel like what it's like to be on the other end of the AA Blast Echo Slam and the Roche Pit combo. And man, did it hurt.
I wish I picked up that in the moment, because it would have made that so much more epic. But
They cut the highlight clip. I say it like 20 seconds later.
I know. I love how that was being brought up. Like, yeah, this guy's know nothing. Yeah. You did bring that up, and then you referenced that. And to be fair, I actually did say that was a disastrous fight. So I kind of did quote it. No,
I don't know if our voices can get high enough to do that.
No. I go the other way. I go lower.
And not only was that like a huge team fight and super ironic because EG won a TI off that, but that also was what knocked EG down to the lower bracket. The game was basically over after that point.
Yeah, for those that don't know what we're talking about, again, if you haven't seen it yet, recommend searching for it. But LFY versus EG, LFY, Afu, actually, their support player, he played the Earthshaker that game. They had an AA as well. And again, AA launched the Ice Blast into the Roshan pit as EG was attempting to do it in a pretty iffy attempt in the first place, but they were trying to do it. And then all of a sudden, Earthshaker jumps in right as the Ice Blast lands, and they just wreck them. They drop their cores, they steal Roshan, and as you said, that pretty much gave them momentum for LFY. To win that game and thus actually knock them down to the losers bracket even in the end. So it was epic. We had several games that were a lot of fun, but we also had a lot of just picks, man, that were just both interesting and okay. So what were some of the more interesting picks? Let's see.
AA middle was probably the big one. AA mid out of Sumail, I think, is probably going to be the highlight of the meme picks,
which they lost. By the way, and from what I heard, it didn't even really go that well. So they were not afraid to try weird stuff, though.
Yeah,
what's the purpose of that? Like, what actually? I didn't even get to watch the game, but why? What was he matched up against?
It was matched up against a Lone Druid, I believe.
Yeah.
No, was it?
Yeah, it was Lone Druid. Yeah.
Okay.
Looking at the Dota buff here.
Yeah. I can't imagine he thought it was a good matchup for AA. What I'm almost wondering, though, is if they didn't want to see how AA would do with items. Like, if you want to know what a 50, 60-minute AA can do, running practice games and scrims and running it as a support until that situation happens is a long shot. Probably not going to happen a lot of the time. So maybe they just wanted to see what it was like if you could get actual items on AA. But then his item choices were, like, bizarre.
I'm looking at it right here.
Ghost Scepter, and then right-click.
Yeah, Mjolnir, Daedalus, and Hurricane Pike. What? This is an AA, for Christ's sake.
And he doesn't even get one of those cool auto attack talents. That's the part that I really don't get. A lot of these supports will get 50 damage, 75 damage, something like that. Nope, nothing for an AA.
That is so weird.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you what they were doing in that one. Some of the other ones make a little bit of sense, but OG ran Arc Warden twice. They ran Meepo once. Crit ran support Puck.
Which actually I could see, and we talked about the value of that, because that even opens up another position that they can run it in. Obviously, a Universe Puck, a Sumail Puck is just as worthy, so you almost have to like ban Puck against EG now, it seems like, if you don't want to have to face against that. So
yeah, I talked about it a lot. Every EG game we did, you have to ban Wisp against EG. It's legitimately mandatory. So if they can force Puck to be their other ban, that opens up the first two picks and bans entirely for them. And that's a huge asset when you're developing drafting strategy and trying to figure out what your game plan is going to be.
Yeah.
So notable heroes that are a little bit off meta but good and winning games. We got Shadow Shaman, most definitely. Has got to be the big, strong one coming out of this patch. Been picked a lot. I don't think I've seen it lose yet. At least in the games we casted. I think it did lose one game on the other stream. Faceless Void's been doing pretty well.
Safe lane Faceless Void even.
Yep. So we might be seeing that back. It's been a year since Shadow played it, and might be going full circle just in time for TI.
Phoenix, the big land of hero.
What do you think of Phoenix so far? What's been your impression?
As I talked about on the cast, this hero just appears in these big lands in the majors, and I'm sure he's going to be at TI. He's fun. It's been interesting seeing different teams actually use him. Where there was that one game where we saw the Phoenix constantly going in and basically using the ultimate there as a zoning tool rather than maybe as a reaction tool instead. So if you use it like that, that paired up with the Faceless Void as we're just talking about with those Chronospheres, it actually can do a lot of damage and be very scary to fight into again. So he's a little slow to get farm, but once he does hit that level 15 mark especially, he really ramps up.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'll definitely agree with you there. I like seeing it. I don't think it's going to be first pick type worthy, but situationally, I think it is definitely back. I think those are kind of the big strong ones. Earthshaker's kind of came back last tournament, but is back with a vengeance. I think that might be getting close to first pick, first ban material as an offlaner. It's just so impactful in every game we've seen it.
And then Earth Spirit. Earth Spirit as well kind of started climbing back in here.
And honestly, huge thing for OG if it does come back in the meta, because you have indisputably the best Earth Spirit in the world, and if that can start drawing bans, maybe it opens up, like, OG's won a lot of their majors on what I would call set piece drafts, where they need these 2 or these 3 heroes, and then it all forms one cohesive strategy. And if you can pull bans on one-off stuff like Jarak's Earth Spirit, or, Alchemist isn't pulling bans anymore, but there's things, if you can pull bans guaranteed, it can give you that set piece opener. So I think it's really, really solid for a team like OG if First Spirit comes back.
Yeah, as we kind of hoped for, this event is going to start giving us a preview of maybe what to expect at TI7, because this is after patch 7.06e now. We don't expect another patch to come out, right? Like, there's a month here before TI7, so I would doubt it, but I guess we can't put it past them releasing another balance patch. Could you see it happening? I mean,
no.
There has to be a point where they stop, right? They can't just keep doing it. So.
The most I could see would be if something was
like a bug,
like maybe a very, very tiny balance patch, but I would doubt it. I think we're where we're going to be for TI. I think this was it. So
yeah,
Bloodseeker's been getting picked up a little bit, a couple games here and there. It's 1-1, lost one, I believe, so far at MDL. As far as underperforming or non-existent heroes that were big, though, Bristle is just gone.
Oh my god. Thank God.
Bristle is dead.
I don't think anyone is disappointed by that. A little bit of Death Prophet, actually, on the other side, too. We saw a little bit of that hero.
DP drew a lot of bans.
Yeah.
That was the biggest thing to me. I was shocked, but yeah, DP just been getting first banned a lot of these games.
And then Lena died off a little bit. We're not seeing much her anymore.
Definitely
Those nerfs
true.
that she got.
I'm a little bit surprised, honestly. We got to talk about one of the biggest disappointments in this tournament, though. Clutch Gamers 1-6 in the group stage, and to be fair, they didn't even look great in their victory. They
cheesed in their victory, if you want to put it that way.
They brood mothered into a no brood answer draft kind of thing, and LFY picked Huskar. So like, by destroying his lane, they just won the game right away. But good on them for finding an opening and taking it. But man, for a team that qualified for back-to-back-to-back lands to just bomb out like this, that's got to be a little disheartening for the guys, especially after just not making TI.
They were close, to be fair. They were closer than a Faceless. Not to take shots at them, but they did. Ouch. They just about got there. They did just about get there. So yeah, rip Faceless. Did mention that earlier as well. No longer. Be fun to see where those players end up, though.
Yeah, Black will probably go to a new region. He hasn't played for South America yet.
Yeah, I was going to say South America seems appealing. That or America, for that matter. North America.
Didn't he play on one NA team for a little while?
Did he? I don't know.
I don't know, but now I want to know.
Yeah. Can get that info. All right. But yeah, other than that, Chaos Knight. Did we mention Chaos Knight? Jesus.
No, we have not mentioned Chaos Knight.
He's been a big one too, and that's one that people have really noticed. In fact, I'm like looking through all these games in the round robin, and it feels like he's in just about every single one. The heroes picked up a lot here in these groups.
Some really mixed results. Some people looked a little bit awkward on him. I mean, Arteezy's performance on CK kind of looked like somebody that hasn't played it too much, but definitely a good time to test the waters and see how you feel like the power level of that hero is right now. I personally think if he can get the early laning phase and builds to scale, it's a disgusting late game hyper carry. It would just delete any other 6-item hero. It's nuts.
Oh yeah, no, you get that hard, especially for the late game, and it's insane how that mix of tanky, but also happens to just be so much damage comes out from the Phantasm, especially if he's able to activate that. So, obviously, with that patch coming out, though, also real quickly, I mean, is there any others on that list that you maybe still expect to see moving forward here? I mean, I know Alchemist has been one that people have been talking about, especially with OG.
Yep. I've said that for a while. I thought it could come back, and if it comes back, it's going to come back with a vengeance. Like, if it is good, I'm sure OG's scrimming with it if they haven't already, and we're going to know very shortly if Alk is back or not. I think, at the very least, it got enough of a buff that OG will keep it as a pocket pick, and it's a threat, at least for them, even if it's not going to be first pick for multiple teams or anything like that. Other than that, I mean, the patch was a lot of tweaking. Lina did get hurt a lot. The numbers don't look that bad, but as far as how much she can pressure the enemy mid laner, a lot of her late game scaling potential with the talent nerf at 25, it does actually impact her. The Dragon Slave nerf is massive to her early laning phase.
Yeah, what is it? It's damage reduced from 110 to 85 at level 1, and then it's reduced at all levels throughout that. So, yeah, especially that level 1 nerf. I mean, that's 25 damage nerf?
Yeah, which when you're using it both to last hit and pressure their mid laner, 25 damage is a lot. If you get 4 of those off every 2 minutes between the runes, you're talking essentially a full tango or more of regen difference.
Yeah.
Night Stalker nerfs, we saw them hurt Night Stalker. We saw when he got picked up yesterday, not having mana at certain points when he needed it, but still being picked constantly. I don't think that's going to go away. It's a power change for him, but it doesn't change what he wants to do.
I feel like one of these hidden gems is a Brewmaster. I've been seeing him constantly getting buffed more and more, and he's kind of, he's always kind of, where do you run him kind of hero, but off lane as well as mid is a possibility. I feel like we're going to see him.
And more so than where do you run him, how do you build him? Because these talents that keep getting buffed and buffed are the ones for right-click brew. They're the ones that impact his non-ult form. And to build a brew like that just feels very bizarre, where you're going stuff like a Daedalus or, I don't even know, like a Halberd, like S&Y, that kind of item. It just feels kind of clunky on a hero that for the longest time, his entire identity's been built around his ultimate.
Yeah, that's fair. Just the mischance, though, I think is something, because miss is really popular right now. Like, evasion in general is really popular. It seems like he could potentially be strong in the meta with some of the heroes that we're seeing.
He could absolutely be a huge counter matchup to some of the mids. I mean, he could ruin their laning stage entirely, but translating that into a win, because right now silence effects are just so prevalent between Orchid and all of the stuns coming out that are being picked right now, and Death Prophet even having a silence. There's just so many different silences and stuns that make it very difficult for Brew to get his ult off. And yeah, we'll have to see. There is definitely an outside chance that somebody does find a way to build a carry Brewmaster, like a mid or a 1 Brew that relies more on right clicks than the ult is an escape or an initiation.
Chen finally got the Hand of God buff.
Woohoo, it's more than Howl.
They made it more than Howl. That's so sad.
I mean, it really is.
Hal's 400 heal at level 4, right? So a level 3 Chen heal used to be 425, so only 25 more. And then now it's 475. So yeah, they buffed it. Oh, they didn't even buff level 1, actually. Wow, I thought they buffed level 1 too. No, it's just 225 at level 1 still. Okay, wow. God, that heal's so bad. I want him to be so good, but...
You have to be a god Chen player to make it work. You can't feed any creeps. You have to use the early momentum for towers. It's just in one of those spots where everything has to go right for you to play Chen right now. And they're scared of making him much better, though, because when Chen was good, it kind of took over.
Well, he's one of those heroes, especially on the competitive scene, he would dominate. Like, he has that potential, especially in good hands of the very micro-intensive player, to just, as you said, kind of take over games and be very, very dominant, top ban worthy for sure. So I can understand why they're just fine, not overtuning it, and just letting it be. If people want to pick Chen, go ahead, guys, have fun with it. But they're not gonna make him relevant. Jungle in general too is, of course, not really the most relevant as well. So that also hurts the cause.
Yeah, Queen of Pain with the nerf definitely hurts her. The matchup she used to pressure a lot more. The 4 base damage reduction kind of hurts her early CS, and they're starting to nerf the get a Mjolnir, press it on yourself at 25, and you're immune thing. So we're getting there on that one. But
yeah,
all in all, I mean, it's just... Go ahead.
Well, that's because
Mill
initially it was a blade mill, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Blade
now
Mill
it's
was
this.
legitimately 100% immunity at one point in time on it, but yeah, this patch was good overall. Just tweaks to kind of bring things in line. I don't think anyone that was bad got good, or anyone that was good got bad, but definitely adjust the power levels a little bit. May affect pick order.
That's the plan. TI7 around the corner. I want to make sure it's not going to be too stale going into it. So,
On a more fun note, did you open your player packs yet?
I was just about to bring that up too when we're finished here, and I'm actually personally I think I'm going to hold off on that. And what I think would be fun, we'll talk about that on next week's show.
All right.
Yeah, I guess that means you're becoming more of a permanent, aren't you?
It's kind of getting there, isn't it?
It's getting there. This is show number 4, I want to say. 5 even.
It's just a good time. I mean, we get to talk about stuff that we put a lot of time in. It really is one of those things that I know me personally, I'm following various forms of Dota, whether that's reading threads on our Dota 2 or watching tournaments or casting games. I'm putting 30, 40 hours a week into this. And so to be able to talk about it and give my perspective, it's just a lot of fun.
And knowing that people care, right? Like, that's weird. Like, people
care
are
about what I
actually
say.
listening. I know. It's
I felt really bad. All right. Listener, if you're out there from when we were doing predictions before the TI qualifiers, somebody said they picked, oh man, what was it? Elite Wolves instead of Infamous, because I said that was my pick. And that was really convoluted. I went back and listened, but essentially my end point was whatever team had King Tekka was going to win, which was right in the end.
Yeah.
But it was definitely complicated. So, I mean, I suppose there are a few listeners that might take what I say a little too literally.
I mean, hey, it's
all good fun.
We're knowledgeable, but we can't predict the future. Come on.
I killed my predictions though. I only lost one of them.
Yeah, you were mentioning that. I was happy with how I did. I missed a couple, but I was definitely happy with my results there. So yeah, I look forward to doing it with TI. And again, we're gonna obviously have fun with that and preparing for that. And then, but I figure, yeah, next week's show would be good to maybe go over the player packs there and
sure
talk about our lineups and stuff for a fantasy challenge.
I might know what I have by that time. It takes forever to disenchant these cards and recycle and get new packs.
So you've done it already? You've opened packs?
I'm in process. I've literally been doing this for the last hour.
I hear the clicking, and I'm guessing, okay, that's what that is.
Didn't know you could hear it. Yeah, it's a process, but I'm definitely excited to discuss it because with that comes a whole bunch of talk about TI. We got so much coming up in this event, and I am super excited to hear your take on it and kind of lay out what it's going to look like.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that pretty much leads us to the end of our discussion here. So, Zrock, as always, a pleasure. And hopefully those tuning in too, you guys enjoyed that, the discussions that we had here. So, looking forward to the next season with the Valve announcement there. But, you know, we got TI7 now to worry about. Going to be coming up. But we'll also be going over, obviously, MDL next week as well. And the finish of it. I'm actually watching Game 2 right now. The draft has begun once again, so we'll get into that here. But Zrock, thanks again, man.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Look forward to next week.
All right, so that is going to be pretty much bringing the end of the DotPro show here. As always, another great show as expected. Definitely a big shout out to my guests here, both 3-3 as well as 1-4-3-7. Both of TI qualifying teams right there. Really excited to see them at TI and even get to meet them in person. I'm going to be going to TI myself, as I mentioned, so looking forward to that. Obviously, also shout out to Zrock here for having some good discussion with me as always. And shout out to you guys for tuning in here, definitely. So, as far as the other things to announce, again, there's not really a whole lot else going on. Now, obviously, the MDL, we already got to talk about plenty there. Dream League starts in a couple of weeks here, so not going to preview that just yet. But Dream League itself, only a 4-team event, not really going to be the craziest there. But it'll still be a fun idea as far as what to expect from teams like Team Secret as well as Liquid. And then you have Vega Squadron and Planet Odd, currently the listed teams in that. But again, that's a couple weeks away. And we'll talk about that in a later show. But also, I will say this. We definitely have some fun plans. I've been talking with some people, and hopefully throughout this month here leading up into TI7, here on the DotPro show. We're going to be definitely doing some fun things. In fact, as I've noticed here, they finally released the player cards that is in client as well. So for the fantasy rosters, as well as they have All-Star voting, and they announced that they're going to have a $100,000 All-Star match where the community gets to vote for the players on either team. That's going to be a lot of fun. We'll definitely have our discussions on that and which players are deserving of that event in future coverage here. So, as always, though, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning into the DotPro Show with BreakyCPK. I am BreakyCPK, and we'll see you next time. Have a good night.